charming, you know, understated, and he's got a better hairstyle than Paul. But they're a great partnership. I think they were mates at school, and it's an incredible story that Paul will probably fill you in on. But the other thing that I've noticed about Paul and the business is they want to give back, and you'll hear a little bit about that. But one of the things that's quite touching is a charity, and they sponsor many charities, but Eleanor is palliative care for all ages of people facing terminal illnesses. So, you know, there's a lot more to his business than making it a very successful business where they've become house builder, small house builder of the year at the Whitehouse Awards, etc., etc. So Paul may not share that, but absolute credit to you. You embody the spirit of why I want to champion SME house builders within the industry and the various things that I do. So it's a real privilege to have you, Paul, and your time on this call. I think we're up to 51 people on the call, so I'll start talking nicely to you now, Paul, just in case anyone wants to, you know, get me for something or other. But before I do that, I'm going to hand over to Anna. I think I said at the last meeting that we are going to be really shaping this up as a forum. I think it's the largest independent forum for SME house builders. Anna is now a director. My son Aaron has also joined as a director of this. We are changing logo. We're setting up a website. We're going to be doing various interviews, podcasts, various things. So we are really looking to champion it with the roles that Anna performs for the King's Foundation. She's working with the likes of the Hill Group, which is the largest privately owned volume house builder. So I think we've got a lot of people that are passionate about SME house builders. And I guess, you know, 5.5 years ago, I never dreamt that it would be the size that it is, and it probably needs someone or a few people to continue to make it sustainable rather than it being as ad hoc as it's been probably under me doing it almost myself on my own. So I'm delighted, and I'd like Anna probably to share just a little bit about what we're doing. It's super exciting. Please, it is your forum. You know, we've got 55 on the call at the moment. I think we'll get some more, and we are wanting to shape this and grow this to truly add value to the people that are on this call. So it's your forum, not ours. We are purely championing it on your behalf. So I'm going to hand over to you, Anna, before we hand over to our guest speaker, Paul Henry from Esquire Homes. Over to you, Anna.
Oh, thank you, Edwin. And I won't keep everyone long because I know you're chomping at the bit to hear what Paul's got to say. But I just wanted to give you a bit of an update on where we are with the website. So we've now got the first draft. Thank you to everyone that provided feedback on the new logo and the look and the feel.
Andy, hi,
and
Jack.
we really will.
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Sorry, I missed you.
I can hear someone talking.
Yeah,
could you go on mute, whoever that is?
Can we mute everybody?
There's not, mate, as far as I can see, but
excuse me, could you?
Oh, I've done
sounds
it.
like Jack.
All right, so I've muted everyone. Hopefully that will work. But yes, so just to say, thank you so much for the feedback that everyone's given. We are going to be unveiling the new website in the next couple of weeks, but just to advocate that it is your forum, we are looking for feedback on a constant basis. So if there is anything that you would like to see, if there's something that you feel passionate about, I know there's lots of legislative changes coming down the pipeline that we're going to be working on. So if you want to get in touch with me and Edwin, and you know, we can campaign on your behalf, but we are going to be also keeping the forum as quite conversational, quite fun. So yeah, it's all in progress, and we're building it up as we speak. So that's good. Edwin, sorry, I put you on mute as well, Edwin. Sorry, I'll try and unmute you.
And just leave him there. He's perfectly fine being muted, I think. So it allows me to get on, and everyone else can enjoy the rest of their day. So let's probably leave him where he is.
The power to put Edwin on mute. Wonderful.
Brilliant. I know. You remember that film? There's a remote control, wasn't it, where you can rewind and fast forward, and you just stick Edwin on pause. That's what we need. But look, if it's okay, then I'll kick on if that's okay. I appreciate the big up there in terms of what you've come to learn about Esquire and over the years, and me wooing you. It's probably the only time in your life you'll ever get someone come up and say hello to you rather than the other way around. So take it on the chin well. But I thought, the truth is that this group has gained an immense amount of credibility, and I think, fair play to Ed and the team and where we're trying to take this forward. We've got a lot of collective messages that this forum and the forum that I'm going to talk about in a moment that I've chaired since 2018, and it's more refined locally to Kent region, but a lot of the noises and the voices coming from all of us are that collaboration of one goal, really, and that's to generate more opportunity and have that SME voice really heard at the highest levels. And I think we're cracking that. I can see that, between us, we've reached right to the top tables in politics, at very least, where we are trying to make a change. Now, whether they listen or not is another thing, and that's the next thing we've got to take it to. But I'm here today to talk about a concept that Esquire have really pulled together. I don't know if it's a particularly new concept. It's just something that we wanted to do in our industry, wanted to do in our area, in my role and capacity of chairing the Kent SME network. And it provided an opportunity in both directions. So I've got a presentation. It's a little bit wordy because we pulled it together as a bit of a brochure, but rather than me regurgitating it, I thought I'd just share the brochure and I can send it to you guys afterwards as well. And I'm just going to talk through it. It gives you a bit of an introduction about Esquire. I won't do much more than Ed's already done, but it tells you a bit about what we've done and how we've grown our brand, and then why we set up the principle of what we've called shadow mentoring and really what it looks like. So I'll share my screen now. Anna, if you can just let me know once it's on screen and visible.
You're live.
Excellent. Right, let's put this into slideshow mode. Cool. Okay. Just move that out of the way, moves Ed's face over there. Right, shadow mentoring then. So for us, we've branded this really guide and grow through a shared experience, and that's ultimately what it is. This is guiding growth of other businesses with a shared experience, not least of ours, but also those other SMEs that have fed into our network, and a lot of what this forum is seeking to do as well. So how do I skip next? Oh, there you go. Right, so Esquire, just a little bit about us and who we are and why do we set it up. And again, apologies, I say it's a little bit wordy because it's more brochure format, but I'll just touch on who we are and what we've done. So we set the business up in 2011 with sort of a bold idea between David and I, my business partner, who were 23 at the time, quite green, had never built a property ourselves. I was a chartered QS and he did a law degree. Decided that law wasn't for him and never practiced, but we set the business up with a bold ambition of delivering good homes, trying to break a mold of what was not being delivered in the industry. But as I say, we were two sort of young, green 23-year-olds, lots of energy, made lots of mistakes, but actually that energy picked us up and made sure that we drove forwards and really built a brand. First site of ours, we saw this lovely site. We thought, cracking, we'll get 8 or 9 units on there, only to realise it's in the middle of the Greenbelt. And to us, the Greenbelt was a total abnormal word. We had no idea, and self-admittedly, it was, we didn't know much about planning. So we managed to recycle some square footage. We managed to get a consent for 2 units. We built those 2 units. We built a framework of suppliers. We got to know a bank. We understood a bit about the market. We got our CGIs terribly wrong. I look back now, 13 years later. Bear in mind, we set up in 2011, but we didn't deliver that site until about 2013. I look back now and think, wow, I can't believe we sold those, how they look with the marketing and the media we had at the time, given how much we focus on that digital marketing these days. We sold them. We made a bit of a profit, but we made a lot of errors, as I say, but all of those mistakes were turned into opportunities, really, and it allowed us to push on and learn from those mistakes. Fast forward now to 2025. This year we'll deliver around 150 units. Next year, pipeline's 180, and 2027 is a bit of a bumper growth for us to get to the 250 units, but that's all with secured sites and pipeline for us. fueled really by a strategic reinvestment. I've said to everyone since I've chaired the Kent SME network, property is all about reinvestment. You know, a bit of a tagline for me: you don't buy your Ferrari after your first deal. You know, you wait until you've made it, and then you start thinking about those luxuries in life. You know, because this is all about reinvestment. We know how much capital it takes to get these schemes off the ground. We know how long these things can take, not least through planning. So I encourage all of the smaller SMEs that are growing their businesses. It's all about, you know, reinvesting your capital, not splurging before you've made it. So for us, we've now got just over 1,500 plots in the planning system. We've got a pipeline of options that exceed over 3,000 plots as options, and they'll work their way through the system. We've grown from 2 staff to 62. And the strength of that is from land through planning, technical, commercial, sales, customer care. So we take everything from cradle all the way to the grave. We outsource very little other than the detailed design work. So when it comes to structural engineering, whatever else, otherwise everything else we keep under our own umbrella. It gives us the control. It means we're really sort of pinpointed in terms of how we want to face as a brand. And as Ed said, it's led us, you know, thankfully, when we wrote our business plan 15 years ago, we wanted to win an industry award as recognition, and thankfully we've won quite a few in our bookshelf now. So we're doing well in that sense. But that gives you a bit of a steer as to who Esquire are and what we are and what we do. The SME network then. So yeah, as Ed said, I did approach Ed regrettably a few years ago and sort of said, what's this about this band of builders? Because in 2018, I established what we call the Kent SME Developer Network. That's made up of around 40 SME members, all Kent-based. Some flex their muscles into East Sussex and across the water to Essex, but fundamentally Kent-based. And the whole reason, similar to this forum that was set up, was to gather a collective voice, really, to really try and represent the SME voice at those higher levels, but equally engage in those more local relationships. So how did we get access to those decision makers at local planning authorities, councillors, members, and we've built that over a series of time. And actually, because the forum has gained so much credibility in terms of its influence on local plan making, on decision making, on policy generation, those local planning authorities are calling on us to then make representations and stand up with them to support their local plans at examination. So in terms of a network, it's really kicked on and improved those relationships locally. We wrote a small and medium sites policy, which has been adopted in 4 local planning authorities in Kent, nearly word for word. Not quite. We've obviously pushed those around slightly to suit members and other stakeholders at those local authorities. But fundamentally, the small and medium sites policy, which we've been lobbying at a national level as well, I'm pleased to say has been adopted by 4 local planning authorities, which essentially has allowed SMEs to operate outside of a framework of allocated sites under a local plan. So we know that SME site typologies aren't those traditionally larger strategic sites that are adopted in local plans, and that's the easy wins for local planning authorities. So what we've sold the message of, and thankfully got the buy-in for, is that we need something for those SMEs to point towards inside an adopted local plan that still allows that lifeblood of sites to come forward for SMEs. So they're smaller scale, up to 60 units, broadly 2 to 3 hectares, edge of settlement, in sustainable location. So effectively, it still allows that presumption in favour to apply on small and medium sites for those sites to come forward, which is critically important to the SMEs. As I say, it's helped build and strengthen relationships with heads of planning, councillors, MPs, other influences. We've had meetings with MHCLG, Homes England, housing ministers. There's a lovely picture on screen there, me having breakfast with Keir Starmer. Now, look, we've got right to the top in terms of the messaging. It's all about now just building from the ground up and trying to get those policies instilled as we drive forward. But as I say, the network's been incredibly successful. We have seen new entries to the network, which I'm most encouraged about. We've seen guys and girls setting up businesses in the last 3 to 4 years. They're few and far between, I have to say, because I think the hurdles are so difficult for those new entrants to really jump over. But we are seeing them come through. They're not all, 50, 60-year-old grey-haired men that are sat there delivering these sites. We do want to see those younger generations coming through to keep the life of house building going forward. So for us, it's critically important that we encourage those younger generations to come through the system. And part of the network is to really try and push those on to be brave, be bold, and take that opportunity. So then that's where shadow mentoring come from, really. So shadow mentoring for us is a concept that, and it's exactly in the words in terms of that shadow mentoring. We use the term shadow because we sit in the background. Esquire are very much that big brother that sits in the background with all of the tools for someone of a smaller scale to lean on. And if we think about those new entrants coming into the market, fundamentally, the biggest challenge is, I think it's down to two for me, because I think people can get funding, people can come up with creative design, they can establish supply chains, they've got an idea as to how they build, and lots of these entrants are quite good with their digital marketing. They know their product, they know what they want to sell. But the two biggest barriers in my mind are certainty and capital. Certainty around planning, finding those opportunities and having those sites to deliver. That's possibly the biggest problem. And then capital, obviously, from a new entrant's perspective or a smaller growing SME, it always is a challenge to find investment, to generate your own capital and then get those schemes going. So essentially, as I say, what the shadow mentoring scheme does is it absolutely respects that the smaller SMEs or the entrant SMEs have got their own brand, they've got their own identity. Esquire is very much behind the scenes in terms of just providing experience, expertise. They can call on us as much or as little as they want. But we've got such a strength in our land team and our acquisition team that because our pipeline, we're in a great place in that sense, because we've got such a strong pipeline of sites that range from 5 units to a couple of 100 units. Typically, because our business has grown, and I describe it almost as like when you back in the day when you were playing the Super Nintendo as Mario, and you'd go along and you collect all the coins, and then you jump to the next level, and you collect some more coins, and you jump to the next level. You know, developing is like that when you're growing your business. You invest early, you build over a process of 2 to 3 years. You then level up where you might be doing 10 units a year. Then you reinvest and you start to get to that next level of doing 30 units a year. Then 3 years later, you're reinvesting that capital again. You get to 60 units a year. And again, that cycle continues and exponentially the business grows. From our perspective, we typically deliver across 8 or 9 live sites at any one time. And as those sites have typically got bigger, the need to be delivering those smaller sites, the 5 to 20, 30 units, has reduced for us. You know, it's just as challenging or sometimes more challenging to deliver a 9-unit site than it is a 50-unit site because of logistics and whatever else. So for our perspective, we still get lots of opportunities across our desks where it is the opportunity for 9, 10, 12 units, where us as Esquire is probably not something we're going to build, but our planning team can certainly get hold of it and convert that from a speculative opportunity into something with a bit more certainty, hence the planning. We've got the relationships, we've got the team, we've got the funds to be able to invest and the appetite and the risk appetite to do so. So from our perspective, we're almost providing that opportunity for the SMEs to work alongside us, where we're dealing with point number one, that certainty piece, where we're saying, right, we've got sites that have got planning permission, either with outline or we'll work out a deal between us that's subject to planning. But as I say, the key of the shadow mentoring is it is their brand. We're not here to step on their toes. We're not here as the investor that's banging on them to get it done. We're here as a support network. So I appreciate we've got things like the Housing Growth Fund at Lloyds Bank were backing previously or still in existence. We're different for that. We're not a bank. We're not a funder that focuses on the funding aspect, that seeks an interest return as well as a capital share. We're experienced is the difference. We know the local planning authorities that we're in. We've got the relationships with the officers. We've got the relationships with the designers, the architects, the engineers, the framework of suppliers. So the mentoring aspect is much more than just the funding aspect for us. There's much more to it. So when we come to the collaboration and why does it matter to us as Esquire? Well, as I say, we've got an abundance of sites. We're very focused on our relationships with those local planning authorities where we've worked to get consents on these sites. For us, it's about maintaining quality. Our brand is superior to everything else that we think about in the business, that we need to uphold that brand. We need to make sure that our quality and our values are delivered, even on a site that we may not build ourselves, that we work in this mentoring fashion with, that make sure that the aspiration of the design that we've sold to members, to councillors, to politicians and officers is delivered upon, because it's all about you're only as good as your last scheme. And again, I say this to all of the smaller SMEs, that when you commit, you have to deliver. You have to make sure that the quality is there. It's how we brand ourselves differently to the volume house builders. People will buy your product first because you're building a better product. So it matters to me because my relationships with the local planning authorities are so important. My relationships with the funders and the framework of suppliers are so important. And these are all people that we're introducing to the SMEs. It's allowed us to really try and improve their awareness as well of sustainability. I did a presentation at our last SME network a couple of weeks ago, or last week actually, that was around microgrid battery storage paired with ground source heat pump ambient heat networks, and really trying to push people on in terms of their understanding of sustainability credentials, and not least how we frame and get ourselves ready for the future home standard. Because for a lot of SMEs, you think about that framework and their structure. If it's one person, two person, three people, there's the day job to do. We've got to think about buying sites. We've got to get those designed. We've got to build them. We've got to sell them. Unless you've got the resource, unless you've got the people that start to understand the ancillary aspects of delivering in the UK, and with the changes in legislation, you can never keep up. So it feels as if there's an opportunity where we as mentors can really try and help them and assist them through that process. Next slide. Okay, so the value it brings in terms of what it does. So as I say, it provides an opportunity to SMEs that otherwise wouldn't have existed. So in terms of the planning applications and the sites and the permissions that we gain, if Esquire didn't get hold of it, the site may or may not come forward. Someone else might bring it forward, of course, but it's coming forward with a certainty of a consent and someone to step into. It's always dealt with one-on-one. What we don't do, we're not a land promoter. Our business is to build good quality homes. This is an opportunity as a diversification of a model for Esquire to help others, but at the same time allow us to make sure that the best is being delivered out of those sites. So it's always one-to-one. We don't take these opportunities to 3 or 4 and try and beat anyone up. It's just, if we've got a site that we feel that it suits one of our SME partners in the network, we take it to that partner. If it works for them, fantastic. We'll carve a deal. We get something done. It's very transparent. It's built on trust and clarity from the outset. That breeds confidence in the model. If that party wasn't interested because they've got too much on or whatever it might be, we would go another one-to-one route. As I say, none of this is agent-led. You won't find one of these opportunities working with Esquire via an agent that's seeking best price. It's not what this is about. It's about a collaboration. As I say, they benefit from our network. They benefit from the ability to collaborate with Esquire. We've got 4 of these live sites at the moment. On 2 of them, they wanted to brand the site as Esquire. And I said to them, no, this needs to be branded as your site. It's your flag in the ground. It's really important for you to build your brand. But what we did do was allow that it's brought in partnership with Esquire. So it was advertised as in partnership. And that's just a subtle way, I think, of our brand allowing others to have confidence. So the end user having confidence in that new entrant, because if we've got a smaller SME that the brand isn't overly well known in the local area, it means that our endorsement of that brand just gives a little bit more credit to them as a partnership taking it forwards. The key in all of this, as I say, so when it comes to the model, and I've got a couple of live examples that I'll show you in terms of how it's framed with the capital requirements and the size of schemes, is that Esquire always retain a stake in the deal. This is a partnership. It's an SPV structure where both parties align and sign into effectively a shareholders agreement. We are as silent as you want us to be, but we equally will have some rights of approval in that. We want to see what your design is going to look like. We want to make sure that you're delivering a good product. We want to understand how you're marketing. We want to understand what you're marketing for. As I say, we don't take an interest on our equity that we retain in the deal. We purely get our return on the basis of that shared profit. If we win together because we've done it in collaboration. If we lose, we've cocked it up because we both cocked it up. There's no one way or the other. Equally, when it comes to the funders, and again, this is probably one of the key bits I haven't touched on, is that we've got an extensive relationship with a number of funders. That's quite a daunting process. Whilst there's money out there to be lent, a lot of SMEs are still daunted by the fact of understanding the metrics of those numbers, the guarantees that sit behind those loans. And again, given our brand and our balance sheet, we're in this structure, we're in a position to offer up a corporate guarantee that allows those developers to get the funding off the ground that perhaps they wouldn't have got previously. So I say it's absolutely collaboration. We're not here to in and out for a quick buck. It's very much about breeding a wealth of opportunities to the benefit of both sides. So putting into practice, this is one scheme that we engaged in the partnership of shadow mentoring on probably about a year ago or 18 months ago now. It's a scheme of 46 units with 40% affordable housing in an area in Kent. The SME that we partnered with was typically delivering 10 to 15 homes. They'd been going per year. They'd been going for 3 or 4 years. This was a largest site they'd stepped up to those. So they were previously delivering sites of sort of 10 to 20 units. This was 46, was a bit of a game-changing site for them. It brought in affordable housing, which was different again to them in terms of understanding the delivery of and the contracting relationships with affordable housing. So it allowed them, as I say, they weren't a new entrant. They were a reasonably solid brand, but wanting to grow their business, didn't necessarily have the capital to do so, and struggled to find larger opportunities because their brand base was much smaller size. So say this is a scheme of 46 units. We put in around £1 million in equity into the deal as Esquire. That then meant, following our relationships with the RP, which we negotiated a day one land freehold sale on, and then a JCT contract for the build, it meant the net capital requirement out of the SME was only 580,000. Now that's 580,000 of their own capital to get a scheme of 46 units off the ground, which in the real world is a pretty slim amount of money to get a scheme of this scale off the ground. Obviously, that's backed by some day one funding from one of the lenders that we work with, and again, we've back to back the corporate guarantee to support them in doing so. The ownership of the SPV then in this structure is always done on the basis that it's their scheme. It's fair that it's their scheme. There's a share swing on this scheme in favour of the SME that's delivering at least 25%. Which means we only retained around 25% of the overall deal. Actually, I think it's less than that. I think it's 22% of the overall deal. As mentor in the background, not taking interest on our funds, purely as a profit share at the back end. We'll get our $1 million back in terms of retained equity. They'll get their loans back, the bank get paid off, and we will wait till the end of the scheme until we get our return. So our money is in there for the life of the scheme. It's a scheme that they've branded in partnership with Esquire. Sales are going relatively well for them, which is great. They're just about to launch their show home. So for them, it's a really good scheme that's allowed them to kick on to their next stage of growth. So really pleased with that one. Next one, this is a scheme, again, a smaller village just outside, or still in Kent, but a small village just down on the Dover district. It's 16 units, working with a smaller SME, delivering less than the last one, slightly earlier into their life. This, again, Esquire, we've left in 400,000 into the deal. A lot of this was carved out of their want and their, so again, I mentioned earlier, this is a one-to-one relationship. All of this is when we're getting into the negotiations and talking through. It's an open book process of how the development appraisal looks, what the build costs look like, what we think we'll sell them for together. So it's very much open doors as opposed to a closed shop. So in this instance, the SME wanted to put a little bit more of their own equity in because they wanted slightly more of the returns, which is absolutely great. We left in 400,000. Again, there was a swing in favour of the SME partner, and we only retained 20% of the SME, the SPV share of the profits, I should say. Again, we provided the funding support. There's no affordable housing on this one, so we've really sort of let them work to their own design, a little bit of input from us, introduce them to new warranty providers, for instance, just try and sharpen up some of their rates, giving them a bit of feedback in terms of how they market. Show home doesn't open on this one until the end of next month. I think they've already sold 6 off plan out of 16. So from them, it's a great scheme that's got off the ground really well, and they're excited about delivering that one. So that's the sort of shadow mentoring and the live schemes we've got. It's led us to a much bigger concept and a scale of something much greater than that. And this is where I get sort of most excited, because this is a scheme that we've been working on. It's in Medway Council. I've branded it as sort of SMEs working with SMEs, and we've all seen the Dutchy model, and some of us are part of that model and are going to be delivering hopefully with the Duchy in soon, or others already are at Mansleden and Poundbury. We've seen that model works really well when it's refined, when it's well thought out, when it's understood, when the experience of what's gone wrong gets influenced in taking forward and bettering those schemes going forward. So, as I say, we've seen Poundbury delivered, we've seen Mansleden, we've got South East Faversham coming forward, which is South East Faversham sort of putting all those best bits together, I think, and going to really sort of drive the commercial entity of the Duchy schemes, as well as the design and the pioneer and influence as to working with SMEs on a master plan scale. So we've done this and embraced this model, but really led as an SME, as Esquire, for SMEs. So we've thought a little bit further in terms of how does the framework of the delivery process work? How can it work for SMEs? Pleased to say we've just got an allocation in Medway's local plan for a scheme of up to 750 homes with a mixed-use community centre. The policy has been written by us in collaboration with Medway Council. It is purely for SMEs. The policy is written in such a way that under the Section 106, it is secured that it can only be delivered by SMEs. It has to be parcellised. It means a volume house builder can't just come and make me a silly offer and buy this site. It's committed us to delivering this as an SME-led site. We will be the master developer on it, and we'll be designing parcels in anything from 10 or 12 parcels. We've got some self-build, some custom build, all the way up to parcels around 70 to 75 units. It's going to be a mixture of sort of probably 4 to 5 SMEs delivering this at pace. We will put the infrastructure in, affordable housing providers, to take that burden away from some of the smaller SMEs that we want to bring into the party. And as I say, it's all about driving that agenda of SMEs, delivering with SMEs. This is a really fantastic opportunity that the shadow mentoring model has allowed that process to prove that it works and deliver on a much larger scale. And this is sort of the next round of the story, really. Okay, I think that is it from me. I'll stop sharing.
Well, I thought I talked a lot, Paul, but clearly you've been learning from the master, because clearly you do an excellent job there. I think on behalf of everybody, I think that just gives everybody a sense of the art of the possible. And in what is going to be a tough period, we can't deny that. Look at what still can be done and what can be achieved from creative thinking, looking at things, and absolute credit to you. I'm going to open the floor to everybody. I'm sure there'll be some questions, Paul, but thank you for an excellent presentation. Thankfully, we've got it recorded. Lots of people spoke to me, said, look, I'd love to listen to it, but I'm not available. But on the website, the new website that Anna's creating for us for this forum, we will have various videos and bits and pieces. So we will be sharing that through. I think one of the things I'd like to say before we open it for people to ask you questions, you talked about, the 5 to 200 units, smaller sites that you'd open out. And you talked about relationships, which is key, that you pass on to these smaller ones. But it's trusted relationships. It's your credibility. And it's you being able to help smaller SME builders from IC navigate these choppy waters, and also to know where there's that word bullshit involved in what people ask you for, that you can push back and know where to push back. So rather than if I was to set up De Silva Homes and I'd be paying consultants, I'll be challenging with the councils, you could fast track that for me. You could give me that knowledge and expertise that only time gives you typically. And I think, I think what you're doing in shadow mentoring is unbelievable. And I'm hoping that Ben Bolger from the King's Foundation is still on the call, because Ben, I would love you to just maybe start the conversation. And I know you know, Paul, but in terms of what you and I are doing in terms of the Regional Building Foundation and how invaluable I think Paul Henry will be in his approach. So if you're on the call, Ben, I'd love you to perhaps open up in terms of your feedback and comments from what Paul's covered.
Yeah, thanks, Edwin, and thanks very much, Paul. I mean, I think this is the aspirations we've got. Some of you may know with the initiative of the Regional Building Foundation, which is the 2-year knowledge transfer partnership with the University for the Built Environment, is to kind of gather together SMEs, major landowners, building material suppliers, and possible funders, and pull us all together with a kind of what we're rather grandly calling a place building system, which Paul alluded to. It's a methodology of the Duchy, with ourselves and others, have kind of refined over 30 odd years of sort of some degree of standardization, what I might call a kind of smarter degree of standardization with standard house types, local build, but better quality outcomes and better placemaking, and be able to pull all the strands of that together so that we can help. I think the important thing is not just help SMEs on smaller sites, but also scale them. And I think what Paul has showed here is how it's exactly that, really, is, you're taking someone doing 15 a year or whatever, they're then cutting their teeth, getting a leg up to sort of 40, 50, and then hopefully can then ramp up from that to sort of a consortium maybe of a couple on 600-700, and then perhaps on some of these larger sites of 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, see themselves with a horizon of 20 years, not 3 years. So I think everything you've outlined, aligns very well to our aspirations, and I think we just need to sort of pull everybody together and see who's in the space, because everyone's doing that we've met on the journey is doing such incredible work. It's just a way of sort of bringing it together and aligning it so that everyone can help each other. So that hopefully that's kind of enough of an outline, Edwin.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ben. And, it's just that having worked with Ben now for the last 4.5 years, and we both co-chair the Regional Building Foundation, which you now attend, Paul, and have joined us on it. It really embodies the whole spirit and essence of the King's Foundation and the Regional Building Foundation, which we are driving forward to really enable SMEs up and down the country to have access to land they would otherwise not have. The challenge that Ben and I have seen or feel is that we don't have 50 CG Fries up and down the country capable of big schemes. We now have Esquire homes that have the capability of bigger schemes, and clearly you're doing one with the Duchy of Cornwall. But it's that education, it's building people up to that level, because CG Fry were building 15 units. Phil Fry was building 15 units. He then got involved with Poundbury. He's now building 500 plus units. But that was on the basis he had certainty of land and opportunity in terms of the way the patient capital was dealt with to enable that business to flourish and grow and to employ a huge number of people in the local community, which is exactly what you're doing. But what I think is particularly fantastic about what you're doing is you're actually now looking at your model in a selfless way. Of course, you have to be commercial, Paul, but you're looking at what you've had to do, and you're now prepared to share that with others to give them a leg up. And I'm absolutely inspired by listening to you, genuinely, in terms of what you've done. So credit to you. There's a few people on the call. We've got manufacturers on the call, on the forum here. We've got banks. I can see I've got Steve Lewis from Together Group on there, but I think Paul Heap from Mallard Homes in Yorkshire. Hi, Paul. I think you had your hand up first. Good to see you, Paul, and I will let you ask your question, my friend.
Thanks, Edwin. Paul, lovely to hear that presentation. It was brilliant and very, very refreshing. An observation just to start with, you mentioned the Housing Growth Partnership and you're not looking to compete with them. And I absolutely think that there's no way that you will compete with them, because they're just not in that space. They say they are, but they're not, and I've heard it from the horse's mouth. We've got a couple of schemes, a scheme of 13, a scheme of 15, within 20 minutes of each other up here. And we offered it to them as exactly what they would be looking for. And the guy on the ground said, yes, it should be, but it's too small. We just can't deal with them. They're giving their money now to purpose-built student accommodation and the likes. So, that's a frustration in itself, but just an observation that you're really not competing with them. As Edwin said, I'm up here in Yorkshire and I'm sticking my hand up now and saying if there's anyone like Esquire in my part of the world, then I'd be delighted to talk. But on a similar note, and maybe the question for you is that we did get very, very close about a year ago with a house builder that wanted to support and mentor us. It was through a mutual contact, but that house builder was based in the home counties. They have or had an awful lot of money that they couldn't spend quickly enough themselves. So it was very interesting to them. We weren't looking to them to support us in our land acquisition. We feel we're okay at that, and for the size of business that we are at the moment, we're doing that okay. And we're delivering 20 a year, trying to get to 40, 50 a year. So we're in that space. But they ultimately said thanks, but no thanks, because they're too far away in order to provide enough control through whatever partnership we would have established. So I just wondered what your thoughts were on whether the sort of that distance and the would create an issue, and whether the mentorship, notwithstanding the land sourcing which you do, does need to be geographically relatively local to each other.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Paul. And I think just picking both of them off, the Housing Growth Partnership, the Housing Growth Fund, it isn't something we've ever embraced. We danced with it a couple of years ago, probably 8 or 9 years ago, and felt that ultimately that look, I think they've got a place. I'm not here to discredit what they're trying to do. I think they have a place. I think they have a place as a funder and as a bank. And our model is quite different because we see it as a developer. We've been through the hurdles and the journey, and we understand how challenging it can be. So the bank have got IRRs they need to achieve. They've got metrics and hurdles they need to gain in terms of their return on capital. Our model is completely different. And that probably leads into the commentary around localism, which is a key part of what the mentoring is about. So not only are we providing the capital that allows a site to get off the ground and reduce some of the capital burden on the other SME, but the mentoring aspect is bringing our relationships. So trying to get them around the table with the decision makers at the local planning authority, build their relationship with those officers and members. It's introduce them to the right funders, engineers, how they market locally, their brand, as much or as little influence they want. So unfortunately for us, I think it is refined to the areas that we operate in. It is because, as I say, I would feel a disservice to try and suggest that I knew people in Yorkshire that could help your brand and your business to grow, whereas we can certainly cover that off in Kent, East Sussex, West Sussex and Essex with the relationships we've got. So it is more geographically focused, but I'd encourage others, and part of this as well is to say that look, Esquire aren't the only SME house builder delivering a couple of hundred units a year with these opportunities. There's other larger SME house builders out there that have got these opportunities that are geographically located, that this is a model that I see no reason that doesn't work for other larger SMEs to work in collaboration with the smaller SMEs. So it's a model that I think with the support of the Regional Builders Forum, King's Foundation, is something that we can blueprint. It's something that as a roadmap can be blueprinted, and there's no patent to this. It's just a model that works. It's something that someone else can pick up and run with. So I think if it can be moved around geographically by a larger force, then I think it's something that can certainly be rolled out further.
Yeah.
And on that note, and I'm not making any promises, Paul, but Ben and I are working on it. We're looking to have 14 regional forums under the Regional Building Foundation. There's a lot of work. It's at early stages that we're looking at it, but we would be looking to do something, and all the thoughts on that is along that line. So we will be picking up some of the great work and some of the stuff probably Ben, I haven't thought about that Paul's done that I think is fantastic. But there's been a lot of work going on there. So that is where we're going. We want to have, and we call it CG Fries, I might call it Esquire Homes as of today. We want 20 Esquire homes up and down the country. That's what we want in every region, doing and champion. We need the right ethos and the right values. It's not about, it's got to be people with the right values and principles, and typically people with a purpose greater than themselves. Clearly Paul's looked after himself, his business and whatever. He needs to do that to be able to help others. And that's what he's done. And for me, I look at the behaviours and qualities of the people rather than the volume that someone's building. And there are people out there. I'm thinking of a company, Lioncourt Homes, which is owned by Colin Cole. He's not on the call, he's in Spain at the moment, but he is a quality individual that has a purpose greater than themselves. So he's one of those, and that's more down in the southwest. But Ben and I will be looking at companies of the caliber of Esquire Homes up and down the country that want to come on this journey. So I just want to encourage you that that's happening. What I do recognise, however, Paul, is that it's going to be a tough next 6 to 9 months for smaller SME builders that you need to get through. And Ben and I was on a call yesterday for an hour and a half. That's Ben Bolger looking at this, discussing this with people. So we're on it. And we will keep you posted from what we're doing in that. So there's a lot of work going on to support companies of your size, Paul, that we want to support. So we'll come back to you on that. I can just see we've got Steve Lewis with his hand up from Together Group up in Manchester. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Edwin. Thanks very much. And thanks very much, Paul. It was a really great presentation, very, very enlightening. I'll be honest, I've never seen anything like your partnership mentoring scheme before. But when I've obviously just come across it today for the first time, but when I think about it, it's clearly very enlightening what you're doing, and very laudable. You very rarely see the big helping the little like you're doing in the house building sector, because the big always think, well, I've worked hard to get to this competitive position or competitive edge. Why should I help anybody else come in and challenge me in the future? And then you look at the risk side of it, I suppose. You're adding such a lot. You're adding land with planning, the design side, the supply chain, marketing, architectural support. So you're adding so much value there. And you look at the risk you're taking. You've clearly given your corporate guarantee. You're putting some capital investment in there, but you're also, more than anything, I would suggest is the biggest risk is your reputational risk, because you are getting into bed with somebody else and they're going to build their house, and even if it's branded them, I'm sure somebody will recognize that you're behind it or are associated with the project in some way, and you only get your return right at the end, when everybody else is paid off. So I suppose the question is, you've got enough going on, you've got plenty of other things you could be putting your capital to good use for. So why do you do it? Why do you take that risk? What's in it for you? And I suppose, more importantly, how do you select your partners to work with? I mean, geography just came out from the previous question as one criteria you use, but it's so critical to make sure that people you work with represent your values and what your ethos as a company. So why do you do it, and how do you select your partners?
Before you answer, Paul,
yeah,
Steve, just it's worth you just giving a little bit of background very, very quickly about Together Group and your role, because obviously you're an ex-banker for 35 plus odd years. So just give a quick insight into Together Group, because you're a fantastic privately owned business by Henry Moser. So just very quickly before Paul answers your question.
Yeah, so Paul set up Henry set up Together just over 50 years ago now. And I suppose it was back then, it would have been called a challenger bank, although it wasn't a challenger bank now. Now it's the biggest non-bank lender in the UK. It's got a loan book of approaching £9 billion. And it's still privately owned. We have a percentage of our book in the development finance arena. It's about 10% of the book, so getting on to £1 billion. It's a market we support very well. We tend to be, sorry, my business is a subsidiary of Henry's overall group, but we tend to operate in the north and the northwest of England. So a bit like you specialising in the southeastern Kent, we specialise in our area because we just like to stay close to our developments and make sure that we're on top of things, and we can help developers. You know, when they do come across some turbulence in the market, we find a lot of the issues. Guys can be great builders, but not very good marketeers. So it was interesting to hear your point about marketing being such a valuable so like value add for you. But that's a little bit about the Together group.
I just thought it was useful to put it in a context. Obviously, Steve's been in banking a long time, and I've known Steve and I've met Henry Moser. It's a lovely business. So over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. And look, you've asked two questions there: why and how do we select partners? So picking off the why first. So we've got a great network of, well, we've got a great land team, put it that way. We've got a great land team and a great network of landowners, and our reputation where we build is very strong. And I think that's born out of the distinctive nature of our development sites. You know, you drive past one of our sites, we're quite recognisable from the street scene, I would say. We've got strong palette of materials, we've got intricate design features, we're not stripped back, is what, you know, and obviously we are fundamentally in a world of where Kent, I probably know every SME developer delivering in Kent, not least because I chair the Kent network and have done so since 2018. So from some things of development, there is ample opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity in Kent, and we're in a very good place because the sales market is still very well thought of. We've got great connections to London, and it's still seen in certain parts as an affordable place to want to live. So I think from a housing delivery perspective, we're not short of opportunities, and opportunities are well found by our land team, but equally opportunities come to us. So we would be silly to turn away on which we believe, with our experience and knowledge, that we think we can convert a site from something of not a lot of value to something of much greater value with development potential. So we would always take on those opportunities. The why aspect of why we've then taken on the shadow mentoring approach is, you touched on it a moment ago, is purely around reputation. We are not a land promoter. We are not someone that flips sites for the quickest buck, because a lot of sites, as everyone on this forum will know, nothing is easily won. Every site, despite going into a local authority that's got no 5-year housing supply, or one that works with the small sites policy that we've had adopted in those 4 authorities that I mentioned, still none of those are easily won. They take a lot of convincing with planning officers. They take a lot of work and relationship with the chief planning officers. They take a lot of lobbying and presentation to local councillors and members. And a lot of that time and effort is what secures planning permissions at the end of the day. It is about proving delivery. People want to be proud of what they're approving in their local authorities. So when we take a site to, say, Swale Council for 46 units, and we're having conversations with the head of planning and those members that are making that decision and saying that this can be an SME-led scheme, we're being open about that. We're saying that it's going to be delivered in a partnership arrangement with an SME. We are going to be mentoring the process, but we're being upfront with you at that moment in time. We're not going to sell the site to the highest bidder like a land promoter would do. It holds on to our reputation because it's far more respectable having that open and honest conversation and bringing that SME in. The mentoring piece, the piece around why we retain an equity stake in the SPV, is so that, God forbid, anything happened with that SME where they went bust or just gave up the ghost, Esquire can step in. We are the ones in the background that sort of that springboard that would come, save the day, finish the site and sell the units, and therefore we're still building and delivering a product that reputationally we'll put our name to. If it goes to plan, and as it is doing, goes to plan, then clearly the SME is delivering to a design that we have collaborated together. We're like-minded. We've opened up the doors to understand the development appraisal, what the build cost budget is, what we think we're going to sell the units for, and then we let them get on with it. So that answers the why. I think it's all about reputation. If we started selling sites to people that were unknown or to the highest bidder, all of a sudden our reputation starts unraveling with members, with those decision makers, where we go to the council next time round and say, can I have consent for 50 units? And say, well, hold on a minute, you sold that site to that cowboy builder and look at the state of it. So that's not what we're in for. The selecting the partners then, as I say, so anyone who's part of the SME network, I know incredibly well. I know their businesses well. I've come to learn them and visited nearly all of their sites. I know their models. I know them by name. We know their capacity. We know their strengths and their weaknesses. So, and as I say, we select those partners based on geography, based on capacity, and based on ability, I suppose. And ultimately, that relationship is then carved into the way that we operate under the shareholders agreement, and the mentoring kicks on from there. So, as I say, it's always one-to-one though. We're never going into this, and I'm not putting 3 SMEs in front of me and saying, "Give me your best bid." This is, I like you. I think your model can work here. Your product, in the local authority elsewhere sold really well. Should we have a conversation? Have you got the capacity to take it on? And it's far more one-on-one than it is, taking it to the market.
Well, thank you for that. Is there anyone else? We are actually coming up to time. Is there anyone else that would like to ask Paul a question or share anything with Anna and myself, just in terms of things generally? I can't see any hands up. Can you, Anna?
No.
Okay. Angus McDonald has just shot his hand up from Glastonbury. Come on, Angus. It's better be a good question.
You've got a last-minute bid.
It's a last-minute bid. Paul, as ever, I thought it was fantastic, and hats off to you for what you're doing. Very admirable and very exciting for what could be rolled out across the country if we find enough people who can deliver in the manner that you do. My question is a much broader question, but actually, Paul, it can be answered by your good self. SMEs are carrying on having a really difficult time, and we want to work out where the light is at the end of this tunnel and how long this tunnel is. Can anyone give me any feedback on that? I'd just be really interested to get a perception of how others feel the market is going and when we might see some upturn.
Maybe you answer that first, Paul. Your view on it.
So our span of sites, I'm talking geographically, is obviously from West Sussex through East Sussex and down into Kent. So what I would say from a local or regional perspective is Kent is still relatively strong. I mean, our sales rates at the moment are as good as they were probably back in 2021, I would say. We're not romping at the pace that post-COVID saw. We're seeing that sort of slightly gear 3, gear 4, I would say, in terms of sales rates in Kent. West Sussex is a little bit slower. We are seeing that, but that could well be down to price points. And obviously we're working in partnership with the Norfolk estate down there. So, we're conscious of price point and upholding values, but that is a touch slower. I think in terms of the wider perception, I still feel as if people have got the handbrake on a little bit in terms of wanting to invest and wanting to press on, from an end buyer's perspective. I think there's lots of mutterings around what stamp duty reform is going to look like. Lots of talk on, first time buyer assistance. We saw HBF obviously with the next Secretary of State. I thought the last one might have lasted a little bit longer, but we're already into number 2 under this Labour administration. But it's better than the Conservatives. I think they got through 7 or 8, didn't they? So look, I think we all waited with bated breath on the summer spending review. That was a bit damp. We're all trying to figure out what's coming out in the autumn budget. It's obviously been pushed back very, very late in the day. Who knows? I think that, as I say, the handbrake is on, certainly in the first-time buyer market, and that liquidity at the moment isn't coming through. And unfortunately, Angus, I don't think I've got a silver bullet on my end, other than what I would say is our sales rates are strong. They're much stronger than the volume house builders, and I put that purely down to standing by the quality of product, being brave. People are still buying. People are still making sure that they're buying quality. I've always have a view that don't cut costs, hold quality, and it will, in a downturning market, it will still sell.
Thank you. Has anyone else got any comments about the market that you want to share, so that Angus gets a sense check from others that are on the call from different parts of the country? Anyone else want to give a view and thought process behind your view on when things are going to feel better? Andrew Cam from Bourne Homes. Just about 5 miles away from me, Andrew. How are you doing? Take yourself off mute, Andrew.
There we go. Right. Morning, everybody. Hi, Angus. So we're based in Farnham. We've got a site in Deepcut. I'll be honest, August was deathly. Didn't do a deal in August on the site, and September, I think we've done one deal so far. We didn't see a September bounce. What we're hearing, Angus, is people are nervous about the budget already. We've got 2.5 months to go. So sorry to be a dampener, but I don't think we're going to see much of a bounce. I think, yeah, I tend to agree with Paul. You stick with quality, you keep sort of pushing forward and present your product as best you can. And yeah, you yourself, it's very price sensitive at the minute. We've got 1-bedroom flats selling for 235. We've got people desperately trying to get them, but they can't afford them. They can't get the mortgages. So I think at the moment it's going to be tough. I have a suspicion the budget's going to not be great for a lot of people, but the lower mid-market, I think, will probably survive the budget better than a lot of the rest of the population and businesses. That's my outtone. Materials are not going up as much, which is good, and labour's sort of stagnated at a price. I think, I don't know how you'll find that, but hasn't gone up massively. All right.
Thank you, Andrew. I can see Mike from Invite Homes. Mike, I know we're running out of time, but your quick synopsis on the market in Scotland.
Yeah, it's pretty grim, to be honest, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. And I think a lot of us had hoped that this was going to be a year that things started to improve with a view towards growth for next year. I just want to say very quickly, Paul, thank you very much for a very enlightening presentation. I mean, that's fascinating, and it's great to see that there are people giving back to the industry, because it's not something you see or have seen for some time. I just wondered, in your breakfast with Keir, was there any discussion at all, or has there been any inference about the Help to Buy scheme coming back under a new guise? Because I think a lot of what we're talking about here is around sales risk, and I think that's possibly why you guys are geographically, filtering who you deal with, because you know the area, you know the sales risk, and I think that's a big part of it, is that you're not going to build things as a developer unless you know you can sell it. And I think one of the biggest problems we have up in Scotland right now is around the affordability criteria. Things have strangled the market and really reduced appetite for lenders. And I think where we are, we sell it at a different end of the scale. We're first-time buyers and young families. So the equity piece is a big problem for many people. And of course, with the cost of living crisis and that equity piece is massive. And I don't think anyone in the government, particularly the advisors to ministers, have really grasped the nettle here, and that they need to do something around the Help to Buy thing. I know it's fraught with lots of political sort of innuendo about all the big boys getting a big slice of the pie, but I think by stopping it, they've used a sledgehammer to crack a nut. And I think if we were to look at something like a small sites policy, but for lending around Help to Buy, I think that's something that could really help shift the needle for SMEs, because I think we're all suffering now with this removal of Help to Buy, and I just don't get it when I think most government ministers would admit that the government actually made money out of Help to Buy. Maybe the optics of it wasn't so good when they looked at the big boys getting some a disproportionate slice of the pie, but I really do think this is going to be a big part of how we recover. That's
Mike. Thank you. I did see Justin, your hand up. Justin, has it been covered, or did you want to mention anything, Justin?
I would just thank you. I was just picking up on the comment about sort of how it is in the market. We're a tiny little developer down in Devon. The point you made, Paul, about quality, I've always felt that was the thing to target, and we have, but we're really struggling. We've got hard, premium properties, and we're just not seeing a market for it. So right now, I wish I had some, 350, 400,000 pound basic homes to sell, not high-end passive house eco, which is where we've been heading. So I'm struggling with that at the moment.
I guess, Justin, what I'm reading into what Paul mentioned of that, when he says quality, he might mean in 1 and 2 beds or 3 bed properties, but don't de-spec it. like the nationals tend to do, to reduce their build costs, keep the quality right. So if there is someone wanting a first time buy home or second home, yours is going to be the one they choose,
stand out that bit
because
more.
they're into quality, rather than perhaps where you're building. If you're building, I don't know, £1 million property there, or a 5-bed, that may be a market that's very difficult to shift product, however good quality you put in. So I think that's probably where I think Paul was referring to quality. Don't take it out, but obviously you have to have a market that's going to be a market that's there. And I think the moment you move up in the market, depending geographically, you know, the price of £1 million, they are sticking because there isn't the movement there, and people are sitting on that for various reasons. I think I'm probably going to need to bring things to a close. Paul, inspirational presentation. I hate to say it, but probably one of the best, if not the best, forums we've had. I think, you know, I've just had some WhatsApps from Ben Bolger. We'd love to touch base. I know you're part of the regional house build forum with me and Ben on stuff, and you've attended, but I think your model is something I would dearly love to see us utilise, or build upon what we've already built in terms of that. So I think on behalf of everybody, a massive thank you, Paul, for sharing and doing what you're doing for the SME market. I think the final note from me is to say that we talk about government, but there will be 16 SME house builders joining me and Anna at the Houses of Parliament to meet with Matthew Pennycook and Sarah Edwards. And we've got a pre-brief meeting on that. But so we are doing our utmost, and it's never easy with government officials, but you've got to be talking to them. They say all the right things. They say we're going to do something, but the implementation and execution of it leaves a little bit to be desired. But we're looking to tell them exactly the levers they need to pull, and we're going to tell them that it's on their watch if they want to be the government that see the complete demise of SME house builders. And they all know it's gone from 11 to 2,000. So I think we're doing everything collectively. But this forum, for me, I can't thank you all enough for supporting it. And it's your forum and making it what it is. There isn't a forum like it. And we're going to keep it informal. We're going to keep it relaxed. And we are going to, as I say, professionalize it. We're going to do stuff on it, and we're going to do some face-to-face meetings. We've got 65 SME builders with us next week at a particular event. Ben and I are looking at stuff we're going to do. So we are absolutely stay in there, manage your business well, and we are going to do our bit to support you. So there'll be stuff coming out from Anna and myself and Aaron, who is now on board as one of the directors as well, to champion and support you ongoing. But yet again, can we show our appreciation to Paul Henry once again before we close? Thank you, Paul.
No, thanks all. Appreciate your time and allowing me the opportunity to present. So, and if anyone's got any questions after or wants to hook up and jump on a different call, then feel free to get in touch. More than happy to have a chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks all.
Have a good week, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.